part of my healing cycle, my growth cycle, is returning to things in the past that trying to figure out why I did what I did and where it came from. So I'm in a new relationship and I'm constantly kind of going back to things that I may have done wrong in the last relationship. What was my last straw? What was the determining factor in the end of that relationship? I left it in 2022, but the relationship was over in 2017. My mother had passed away. I talked about that in another video, but we had a wake, and my prior spouse had allowed me to have a wake for my sisters and I at his clubhouse. He's such a good guy to allow us to do that. And he got drunk that night, and we came home, and I was still, it was only a few days after the morning of, my mother passing. And I was crying in the bed. And he walked in drunk and said, "I don't know why you're crying over her. She was just an old whore anyway." I still don't know why I let him live past that statement about my mother, but I did after saying a few choice words. And he left me alone for the rest of the night. I could not wrap my mind around how someone who said that they loved me could say something to me that was so callous in that very vulnerable moment. But that's what narcissists do. Then he so graciously allowed me to take the money that I made to help pay for my mother's final expenses and her celebration of life. So graciously allowed me to use that money that I made for that. And then, because he didn't like my family, refused to show up for the celebration of life. Looking back on it now, I'm glad that he didn't show up, because he would have made it all about him. And I didn't need that. But that moment was a turning point for me. And I still didn't leave. Because losing my root, my anchor, my mother, I started having this horrible back pain and ended up with 2 emergency surgeries on my back. And so I wasn't in a financial state to be able to leave. I couldn't even work. And that was a short moment in time where he actually kept a job for longer than a week, because he had things that he needed to pay. And I wasn't working, so he decided to actually work for that period of time. As soon as I was back to work, he quit it, though. Of course he did. And that was at the period of time where I decided to focus on myself and my own healing and figure out what was going on with me that would allow me to be with a person who treated me like that. Going through a healing process and figuring out who I was and what my motivations were. Fast forward to 2022, my oldest son comes home from the Air Force on leave. And he's gotten married and he's having a reception. And through that period of time was my wedding anniversary. And my prior spouse and I went on a vacation. But before that, my oldest son had taken my youngest son to Mackinac Island, and they had purchased like $50 worth of fudge. That was like 5 pounds of fudge. He purchased it for all of us in different flavors for us to share. The night before that we left for our anniversary weekend, my ex-spouse ate every bit of that fudge and left like just a little piece. And my son came home and called me on our vacation and said, Mom, what happened to all the fudge? And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? He's like, it's gone. So when I asked my ex-husband about it, he's like, well, your youngest son must have ate it all. He wasn't even home during that period of time. He was with his older brother or with a cousin. He wasn't even home to eat the fudge. The only person that was home to eat the fudge was him. So upon being questioned about this, he blows up, talking about how horrible my kids are and what a piece of crap mom I am and what's wrong with me, and you always believe your kids. On our anniversary weekend. So I spent the rest of the weekend being terrorized by this person who just was ugly and hateful. Happy anniversary. And during this point, my son tells me, you know what, Mom, if you want to see me, you're going to have to come to where I am, because being away from this narcissism, I can no longer stomach it anymore. I cannot put myself or my wife through any more of this craziness, this toxicity. So I will not be coming to your home any longer. So now I'm like, my kid does not feel comfortable coming to my home because of you and your bullshit? No, we're not doing that. Nope. A month later, I filed for divorce and moved out of the house. I don't know why it took me so long, but that was the fudge that broke the camel's back. And still, even though I left, and even though I moved on, and even though we were divorced, he still kept calling me, trying to get me back. And my heart had gone and left in 2017. Like, if you had more than enough time to be a decent human being, you had more than enough time to show me that what mattered to me mattered to you, because I had run the gamut of things to show this person that I was 100% with them. And I received very little in return as far as any type of emotional support. In fact, if anything was ever about me, it got destroyed. And then I started doing something called going gray rock, where I never even let this person know when something was like there was any joy or happiness surrounding anything, because they would swoop in and destroy it or have some sort of criticism or judgment about it. And it would quickly turn into something that brought me happiness to something that was like a source of contention between us. So I went numb, I shut down, and I did not allow them to know about anything that I was excited about. And that's no fucking way to live. So when I look back on these things, and I'm like, how did I allow myself to be stuck in that toxicity for so long? And I heal those things, and I understand what my motivations were. It helps me to not make those same choices, decisions, and rationalizations in the future. That's my story. And it was like the universe dropped somebody who was incredibly emotionally mature into my lap, someone who could love me the way I deserved to be loved. And even still, I question that. I need to stop doing that. So I know this was a long video. Very rarely does anybody watch them all the way through. But if you did, I hope it helped. There is something better and more healthy on the other side if you're willing to do the work inside yourself.